Attendance roll call.
Tracy Blair.
Here.
Terry Boyer.
Here.
Fred Hyde.
Here.
Our trader is absent and excused. Robert Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Buckmaster is here, and Mr. Kowalski.
Here. Thank you. Mr. Bowman, can you do this in the Pledge of Allegiance? Absolutely. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2, project updates. Dan, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
You're still here?
This is the last time we've seen.
Really?
Oh,
We'll miss you one more.
I actually don't know anything on your updates. There's been no meeting.
We'll start with Mill Valley. Site work's complete. Last of the paving wrapped up a few weeks ago. We had our final inspections last week. Thumbs up from all the municipalities. We're working on punch list. Furniture is starting to come in, and owner cleaning is ongoing. Cleaning up floors and getting lots of the waxing done. We're at the middle school. Got a handful of punch list items remaining. I'm just waiting for new products to come in so we can complete those items. Occupancy was granted last month, and landscaper was on site putting final touches on the site in preparation for tomorrow evening. Country Meadows, we're working through some fire alarm issues, but hope to get that wrapped up this week. Ceramic tile wrapped up. The last of the VCT floor went in last week, so it's curing right now. And Bob's starting to wax the last of the VCT starting tomorrow. And remaining items to wrap up this week: some carpet and some base, toilet partitions, toilet accessories, some painting and corridors, locker benches, and punch list will be happening on Thursday. So, see the final end. We did pour a scoreboard base last Friday. Steel for that will be coming either Thursday or Friday, depending on what they're painting that right now. And I think we're still pushing about 400,000 left in contingency. It's been a pretty safe project. It's been good financially on schedule. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dan.
and thank you to CG Schmidt for their generous donation, which the board received tonight for the scoreboard. So.
There's an item I missed, item 1E. I need the approval of the agenda. So can I get a motion for the agenda as presented?
So moved.
All those in favor, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. Moving on to item 3, consent agenda.
Well, actually, we might highlight a couple of items under the other master planning projects. Jeremiah, if you want to just give an update on the pool.
Sure, there's just a couple other small projects around the district. We have the pool. It's progressing nicely. They'll be putting plaster in the vessel itself and tile around the floors. And I believe by the end of last week they had everything painted. So really just wrapping it up. And they'll be filling the pool on the 16th. So it'll be a rapid fill, and from there just getting things ready for occupancy. The turf was completed over the weekend, so they had just to put the crumb rubber infill in. So that's all ready to go. I think athletes were taking pictures out there today with their teams. And additionally, the scoreboard, as Dan mentioned, is trending for late August installation. So they got everything set up. We need the board to get to us in order to put it in place. And we will be doing the fencing around the stadium, but the earliest we could get it in was Labor Day weekend. So that's the rest of the projects.
So we have a ribbon cutting and community open house at Muskego Lakes Middle School tomorrow from 5 to 7. So there will be a little ceremony at 5 o'clock with the supporting all of the people who contributed to the project, but then also looking at what we're going to be putting into, and I'm forgetting the name of it, oh my gosh. They're going to add, pardon me? The time capsule, thank you very much. The time capsule, all of the things that the students put into the time capsule. So that will happen tomorrow night as well. And then the ribbon cutting for the Impro Athletic Field will happen on August 24th, and that's right before the Arrowhead game at 6 o'clock. So that's a big night for football and for recognizing all of the contributors to the turf and the scoreboard being fully funded by donations.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, consent agenda. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Anything in consent agenda that needs separate consideration or has questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 4, student representation. We don't have any this month. Item 5, public forum. I'm sure that's why all these people are here. They all want to come up and talk to us. Is your opportunity to bring anything forward to the school board that you need us to know about? Going once, twice. Item 6, superintendent report. Dr. Thompson.
So we do have the pleasure of honoring our state champions for baseball. So it's nice to see everybody here. We have certificates for each of you. If you guys want to just come up and stand over here, and then as President Pefalski calls your name, we'll give you your certificates.
So I'll read the first certificate, and
Just come all the way down this way, guys. See some of your hairs growing out. Yeah, get in. Over.
All
Okay.
right, so we have certificates for each of you. I'm just going to read the first one completely, and then I'll read all the names, just the names of each of them. It says, Certificate of Appreciation. The Muskego, Norway School Board hereby congratulates Frank Sestero for his contribution to the boys varsity baseball team for a tremendous 2017-18 season that culminated in the exceptional honor of the team winning the first ever WIAA state championship, baseball state championship for Muskego High School. The Muskego High School School Board commends Frank for his perseverance, team spirit, and commitment to excellence in the sport of baseball that has brought this unprecedented honor to himself, his family, and the Muskego, Norway schools and community. The Muskego, Norway School Board wishes Frank success in his future education and career endeavors, and it's dated and signed by the officers of the board. So, Frank, congratulations. Andrew Iverson. Mitchell Barclay. Zach Schultz. Scott Polsky. Congratulations. Brady Bloomer. Sam, all right, I gotta, what's your name? Schultz? Shavonic, sorry. Richard Lauer? Cooper Hemlin? Brian Boss? Connor Grolfman? Cody Krause?
In the doghouse.
All right, let's see if we can get everybody over here and we'll take a group picture with coaches. And actually, as they're lining up, Coach, if you want to give us a little history of what happened this season and share.
I'll be in the front there. See you over.
Journey to the state title.
First off, thank you very much for having us tonight. We definitely appreciate being here. I know the guys, we're excited to come and be recognized. So this season we had a couple up and downs to start the year, but to the credit of every single player here, they stuck with it and battled all the way through to put ourselves in a real nice position towards the end of the year. I think that those 5 games in the playoffs are some of the most exciting baseball that any of us probably have been a part of in a really long time, if not ever. And then it culminated, of course, with the sectional final, coming back after giving up a lead in the 7th inning, coming back in extra innings and winning that game, to the no-hitter in the state semifinal, and then, of course, the comeback again in extra innings in the state final. So I can't say enough about how proud I am of these guys. I know the community is and their parents are as well. The school is, and thanks again to the administration and everybody else that supported us all the way through. And just again, congratulations to these guys. It's something they set out to do a long time ago, not just this year. So it's a huge accomplishment for them. So congratulations.
You guys are going to have to like bow down card. There you go. Colin, I think I've got everybody in. I'll take a couple pictures. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to get out of the way. So there you are.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you.
You guys are staying for the whole meeting, right? You were kidding. You were kidding. Feel free to stay. Yeah. Chris, me.
Oh, and also, I forgot to mention it as they were still here, they actually received the Sportsman's Award too, so. Great.
Go get them back in here.
Okay, so now, all right, the next item is just to highlight some of our focus areas. As we enter into our first year of our 5-year strategic plan, I want to make sure you're aware of course, we have our eye on the goal, and you'll be approving the eye on the goal tonight with those goals on it. But there are other things, processes and things like that, that we continue to work on, and some are, somewhat new or kind of a twist or the next step on something. So I just wanted to make you aware. Some of these were shared with some of the board members who came to the individual meetings, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew. So. So we'll be developing expertise in the 6 high leverage practices. As you recall, we have committed to a 3-year professional development plan with our teachers around those 6 high leverage practices in order to impact our achievement and growth data. The second bullet is creating action steps that align vertically. That means kindergarten through 12th grade. That really will prepare students to be prepared and really focus around those ACT standards. So ACT standards have been, we've been aware of them and we work toward them at the high school, but we're really trying to build that K-12 vertical awareness and impact around those ACT standards earlier. The third bullet is enhancing the quality of assessment and feedback practices. This will actually kick off with teachers in 2 years. But we will be starting leadership and coaching, like information and PD over the next 1.5 years. After high leverage practices in our strategies around in our 5-year plan, the next area to really enhance is our assessment and feedback practices. So that's what the third bullet is. Fourth bullet is strengthening school-wide data processes. So we've been on a journey around professional learning communities. We've had 2 schools, Test Corners and Lake Danoon, who went through a process with DPI support actually. It's called the SPDIG group, or grant that you might recall hearing over the last 5 years. Given those results, we are essentially bringing that coaching support to our other 4 buildings. So they will be receiving coaching support through CISA around developing professional learning communities. The next bullet is providing teachers with direct student feedback. We piloted that last year. This year we'll be moving that out to all teachers. The next item is, it's STARred, because that's one area I thought that in the draft board goals that would be something that the board would be interested in supporting. And it's developing strategic community partnerships that support alternative revenue avenues and student experience opportunities. So we're looking at focusing around 3 areas. CTE has been an area that we've been focusing on for a number of years. It's sort of a natural opportunity for students in those fields to get experience opportunities. We're expanding that to business and healthcare as well, and building partnerships. We're looking at and working with InPro actually to begin an academy that will have these 6 levels of student experience. And then once we develop that and really create a strong framework, we'll be bringing that to other institutions and helping us support. So a healthcare institution that we're working with to kind of begin some of the work, for example, is Tudor Oaks. So, and then under that, you'll see the 6 levels of experiential learning for students. And what you'll hear from Christy later is that actually the Department of Public Instruction is looking at tracking students in school districts that actually do community service. And so that 6th, when you look at number 4, that shadows, tours, mentors, that's also in the field, any kind of experiential volunteering and things like that. So we're really trying to get ahead of the curve here with providing experiential opportunities for kids across the gamut, not just in those traditional trades and construction kinds of things. The next bullet is also STARred, and that's prioritizing next steps in our Phase 2 master planning needs. As you might recall, our master plan committee in 2014-15 identified other needs, and as we continue to work in our system, other facility needs are becoming evident in priorities, and so we'll lean on the board, obviously, to support us in those efforts. The next bullet is also STARred, and that's studying the potential of creating an educational foundation, and so we would want your support and efforts in really researching that and determining whether or not that is beneficial for our system. And the last bullet is just a reminder that we have a PDSA cycle. This will be our 2nd year, and we have about, 45 key work processes that we cycle through. The plan, do, study, act phases, and the plan phase is really when we dive into it fully in that key work process. And so some of the key work processes that are in the plan phase for the 18-19 school year are math and elective curriculums, before and after school care, and some contracts that we'll be looking at, food service being one of them, and guest teachers as well. So Further down in the agenda, you'll see those 3 starred areas, asterisk areas, in the draft board goals. Any questions about any of those? Okay. All right, Christy, you have the next 2 items.
Sure. Okay, so we kind of received projections of the DPI report card changes late last year into the beginning part of this year. And now we, as we understand it, in the 18-19 school year, school districts will be required to report on the number and percent of students who are participating in AP classes, the number and percent of students who successfully complete an AP class, which we believe will be passing the test with a 3 or higher. They haven't quite said that language, but that's kind of the assumption. The number and percent of students who are participating in dual enrollment. Dual enrollment means that they are in coursework that counts as high school coursework as well as college coursework. So that would include classes like CAP, the transcripted credit through WCTC. It also includes classes through the Early College Credit Program, which has replaced Course and Youth Options, as well as Start College Now, which is the technical school version of the Early College Credit Program. We're also looking to increase dual enrollment opportunities through a program that's called CLEP, and it's actually an affiliate of College Board, which is the same organization who oversees advanced placement. And so that will be going through the CPC later this fall. We'll also be reporting on the number and percent of students who participate in youth apprenticeships and co-op. They've kind of opened that up to any work-based learning experience. So as Kelly shared the highlights of the 2018, the different focal areas, the one that had the 6 levels of experience, many of those levels of experiences will be able to qualify in what we have to report out to the state regarding work-based learning experiences. And then lastly, we'll be reporting out the number of students who earn an industry recognized credential. We've been collecting that data since 2014 because we have participated in the CTE incentive grant since that time, where we've been reimbursed for our students who earn industry credentials. And so if you recall, I believe last year we earned $38,000 through that grant, and the year before it was about $40,000. So we've got a process in place to monitor that, and we'll look to grow it. Then beginning in the 1920 school year, we'll also be reporting out on community service hours. The state is still working out what that looks like and how that will be monitored and tracked. We're not clear if it's just going to be reporting it for a number of years until they really iron out what that system looks like. We don't know if it's a requirement per student, like 25 hours per student while they're in high school. They haven't outlined that yet, but we know it's coming. And so we're taking preemptive measures to position ourselves so that we already start to build opportunities for students now. A couple of items that are attached there. I just wanted to put a couple in there just as just a piece of education. So the timeline report card change document just kind of gives an overview of kind of how we got to where we are today. Really back in 2010, they realized that no child left behind, that it wasn't closing gaps. And so in 2015, the ESSA plan was finalized and approved by President Obama, and that stands for Every Student Succeeds Act. So that has officially replaced No Child Left Behind. While that was happening at the federal level, there were a lot of states who were starting to do research around accountability, knowing that test scores don't really measure total accountability of a school system. And so if you recall, I think it was last December or January, I had introduced to you guys the national group that was known as Redefining Ready. And it was a number of states who started to do research around college and career and community readiness. And they've made a lot of movement. So 33 different states have already adopted the Redefining Ready measures. And Wisconsin is one of those. So as part of the Wisconsin ESSA plan that they had to submit to the federal government, to the U.S. Department of Education, they actually adopted many of the Redefining Ready measures. And that's where some of the work-based learning, the advanced placement credit or dual enrollment, the industry credentials, that's where that's coming from, is from this other national group. And so because the research says that those things really do matter in terms of preparing students for success, eventually school districts will be evaluated with that data. It's my opinion that they're probably going to give us 3 to 5 years to really get entrenched and get our students, you know, in those types of programs before they turn around and start measuring. But they will start collecting data and reporting on data starting the 2018 year, 18-19. So that's the first document. The second one is Act 59, and that just outlines kind of what I already went through in the bullet points. Just the new measures that will be annually collected and reported on by DPI in the college, career, and community readiness data. And then the last one is the Muskego, Norway adopted redefining ready indicators that you had seen last fall. We're still, now that that Infinite Campus has officially rolled over for summer school ending, we'll be able to collect our 17-18 data, so we're not totally complete there. But you'll see that many of the things that as a district we chose to begin measuring are some of the same things that the state will be measuring. So we feel very well positioned in the new accountability and exposing students to more opportunities. Any questions on that?
Do you think that the community service hours will be something that has to be directed through the school or stuff? I mean, I do a lot of stuff, so I always get a lot of kids to come help me with stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that stuff counted, or is it just stuff directed from the school, do you think?
I have to believe they're probably going to allow those community church, just personal partnerships to qualify. But I don't know that to be true. What we do know is a good number of our families value what community service means and the skills that students develop. But we also have families who don't have the means or the access or even the knowledge of how to even go about getting their child into community service. So we know that we want to be able to offer some through the school district for those families and those students who wouldn't naturally be doing it on their own.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be tracking the community service through career cruising, so through the ACP process, the academic career planning process. So guidance counselors are already prepared to have those conversations with students so that they start tracking them themselves.
So they can keep track of what they're doing.
Okay. Along the way.
Mm-hmm. Just so if I have any kids help with stuff I do, then I can make sure that they start tracking.
And one of the new middle school classes at the 7th grade level that's going to be brand new this year is called Careers and Community. And right within that class, they'll be doing a community service project. And there's a number of other classes and clubs, athletics, co-curriculars that also do it, that some kids who are already involved in school are having exposure to that.
Do they have some sort of measure of the outcomes of the students after they graduate? Like, how are they going to be monitoring that?
Yeah, we are part of what's called National Clearinghouse, which is we're a paid membership to be part of that organization, but they collect and monitor college enrollment data. So that's really the success data that we have access to is the percent of students who enroll their first year out of high school, and then how many return for a second year, and then how many finish a degree in 4 years or 5 years. And so it's very lagging though, because if you can imagine a student who's already 5 years out, that would be determining effectiveness from such a gap in terms of just the amount of years in between that. But we do have some of that data. But that's not a standardized practice across the state or across the country. It's those districts who choose to participate. Okay. Then the next item here is secondary assessments. So as we're starting to better prepare students for college and career and community and really looking at some of our data with the ACT, we've started to explore bringing in different assessments for our secondary schools. And one of those assessments is going to be the pre-ACT, which is on our Redefining Ready measures. It'll be our first year where we're collecting this data. For the past 3 years, we've been giving a practice ACT to those students who are interested while in middle school on a Saturday in the month of May. And we've received really good feedback and have had really good participation. But we know that if we don't bring that in-house for all students, that we're never gonna get all students. And so this year, all 8th graders will take the pre-ACT. This particular assessment is 2.5 hours long, where the regular ACT is 4.5 hours long. But it's still predictive of a composite score because it assesses enough questions in every standard. And we plan to use that data for instructional purposes during the 8th grade year, as well as part of students' academic and career planning. And so as they're creating their 4-year plans for high schools, counselors will be working with them on coursework and looking at other data that's identified through their interest inventory through the ACT as to what some classes might be that would fit their needs and interests. In addition, historically, the high school has always used STAR as their universal screening, but with the onset of Aspire and ACT now as state measures, they feel more prepared in giving the pre-ACT as their screener, and it will also give them comparable data to look at the beginning of the year and set goals around, and then come around the growth at the end of the year. And so we'll be giving the pre-ACT to all 9th and 10th graders as well, and that will be replacing STAR. In addition, we were introduced to a universal screener and diagnostic tool that's called iReady. This past summer, we participated in some leadership training and data digging, we called it, around the ACT. And we were informed of a product called iReady. It's a diagnostic assessment that gives very usable information to teachers on instruction and what some next best steps might be. The middle school was very excited about potentially piloting it, and so we've had the company in on a number of occasions to look at the product, and most recently we invited middle school teachers in to look at the product, and everyone at the table is in support of bringing it in and giving it a try, simply because of the diagnostic nature of the tool. Students take a 40 to 50-minute assessment. It's double the length that STAR was, but because it gives more questions, it can give you more accurate data and allows them to see by standard a student's proficiency so that they can pull small groups and really direct learning around individual needs of students. So we'll be piloting that at both middle schools this year, and that will replace STAR this year. So we're just excited about that and wanted to let you know the background on why we chose that tool.
How long have you been using STAR?
The high school's been using STAR for 5 years, and the middle and elementary schools for 3.
So one thing I said probably 3 years ago when we switched to STAR is, and I'll repeat it, we have assessment ADD. And the problem with that is you keep on changing what we're using for assessments. So trying to get a long-term track record of how we're comparing ourselves. I know you use it for internal assessment, but we also use it for reporting back so we know how things are going. We can't compare data if we keep on switching our assessments. And got the same looks last time.
Yeah.
3 years later, changing it.
Yeah.
We got to find something and stick to it for a minimum of 5 years. It's too difficult to compare data when you keep on switching what we're looking at.
Yeah, the smart technology behind these tools just keeps evolving so rapidly, and the technology that iReady has, STAR just can't compare right now, which is why we're piloting and may decide that it doesn't give us any better data than STAR did. But looking at the reports and the level of detail by student, it's so individualized that our teachers are just so passionate about giving it a try. But yeah, you're absolutely right about the data.
But again, the base of any of these assessments are the standards, and so what we can look at is whether or not we're doing better in standards or not, as far as how students are performing on the Wisconsin state assessments. So we do have that as consistent, but we are trying to be agile, you know, and yet also being responsible to, you know, that longitudinal data. But when we see a really great opportunity to provide data to our teachers to better diagnostician and teachers, then, you know, we have to consider it. So.
And I do like the fact that you're doing the premium ACT for the ACT test, because, I mean, just in nursing, the nurses take the NCLEX, and all of our test questions in college are reflective on what's going to be on the NCLEX. So just to better prepare them for those tests in the future is key, so they don't have that gap of seeing it for the first time and performing at a lower level.
Especially when we're providing that opportunity to some students, you know, the students who have that access on a Saturday morning, or, you know, they can do it. But now we really want 100% of those students having that opportunity. So we will.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
I generally share Rick's caution on these assessments. However, I'm curious, and I really just got through this today, so I didn't get a chance to eat it anyway, sorry. But I guess as long as, you know, there's change in technology and stuff, I'm just thinking, what was STAR, when we selected STAR, that was probably based on our curriculum at the time, STAR, what would address our specific curriculum? So I assume that iReady is better suited to address our curriculum. Is that true, or is...
So both assessments assess the Common Core state standards.
Okay.
When the high school adopted STAR 5 years ago, the middle schools and elementary schools were using Discovery Ed, and that company actually terminated. So at that time, we had to move into a different assessment, and because the high school is having success with STAR, they piloted that at the middle and elementary, and then that's where it went from there. The one thing that we're starting to learn is, as our state assessment is becoming more agile, like the kids who take the forward exam for example, they're not just reading a question and answering it. There's actually manipulatives where they're dragging and they're choosing and they're grouping, they're highlighting text, they're annotating, they're writing, and STAR is just a simple multiple choice question and answer. And iReady actually mirrors what they see on forward. And so as we look at our STAR data and our forward data, there is some misalignment simply because STAR isn't assessing in the same way, and it's not able to assess the same standards. It assesses some of the same standards, but not all of them. Because we can't assess a student and their ability to infer and write about that in a multiple choice test. So it's assessing, it's more aligned to what they're being assessed at the state.
Okay, and then, you know, as far as when we get the STAR report, you know, it's like a one page, and it tells you about where your child is, right? And so if you could compare that, what would an iReady report do? Is there further diagnostics for the parents or further information on how to assist or be a partner in education? Sort of, is there?
So your STAR report would show proficiency and rating, so whether you're advanced, proficient, basic, or minimal. The iReady report actually goes into the standards and will say, in this group of standards, the child is proficient. In this group, they're above grade level. In this group, they're below grade level. So it gets deeper into a diagnostic approach, where then teachers can take the data where the students may have gaps and pull small groups and fill the gaps. Whereas before, you may have known that a student was proficient, but they could have been proficient on these standards, but not these, but as they were average, they were proficient.
And that report is something the parents will see too?
Yeah, the parent report is fantastic.
And then last thing, I think you answered is, our assessments, I think, are built heavily on RTI. How is this, is that, that's still fine? I mean, we're confident that this will give us the tools to put in place for
Yeah.
our TA. Okay.
That was one thing that we felt started very well, was help us identify students who needed intervention. What we didn't feel like it really had in place was tools for instruction. And iReady not only diagnoses students for intervention, but it diagnoses all students. And then it provides instructional resources for students in group or individual needs.
Okay.
So it's like 3 steps ahead.
Because I think we do an awesome job plugging the gap. Any advance or any tool that could even further that would be really good. So, okay.
I may have a copy of a parent report. Would you like me to link it into the
Yeah,
board?
I'd be interested to
Okay.
see that. Just
Yeah, I'll do that
because
in the next 5
you know, as
minutes.
Rick brought up, I'm always cautious of, you know, as a parent, you know, it's like, and for me, it's like, okay, Toby had this, now Tessa has this, you know, because of the gap. So I'm thinking, well, how do I? And it gets hard. It's, you know, it's a struggle. So if we can make it easy for parents, we may have to do some footwork on our own. But if we can somehow make that work, I get how it helps you. I just want to make sure that parents also see that benefit. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, link that in a minute.
Have there been any discussions with STAR and what their deficiencies are? Is there any plans of updating or changing in the future?
It's interesting, yeah, they are actually updating their platform, but they're not making their tests any more diagnostic at this point. The ironic circumstance that I ran into was the gentleman who was presenting iReady to us. I'm sitting there looking at him, and I finally said to him, "Did you used to work for STAR?" And he said, "I did." And so he was super fluent in being able to explain the differences between the two. And they're for different purposes. STAR is a great universal screener. It's not meant to be used for instruction, whereas iReady is meant to be used for instruction and can be a screener.
Any other questions?
The next item is just a follow-up. The board had approved the SRO contract back in March, and at that time we said once we have pay information, we'll bring that forward so the board knows, you know, how the negotiations ended. But then also on the side, we also created an MOU just coming around an understanding of what the school resource officers' jobs would be in the schools, so that there was clarity about that from school and police departments. So that's in there as well for you to peruse. And then the last.
I was gonna say, when I saw that, I liked that. Like, there was a job description of the roles, and
Yeah.
that was good.
And the last item is the contributions to the profession. So, and 2 articles are in there. One around hardwiring educational excellence, and the other is Are We Safe from Jeremiah Johnson. And we have a couple of conferences that are coming up in September with a few of us going. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, other reports. President's report. I want to thank Tracy and Carrie for getting their dates information into me. Are you the board members who have done so? Or name anyone else who has not individually. But it'd be nice to get that into me so we can. Well, it's not. I don't know if it's the new people. I think it's more of a female thing because Lisa, this other one who has it.
Oh, that's gonna go viral.
So I think they're just more responsible than we are. But it would be helpful if within the next week you can get that to me so I can kind of put it together, make a synopsis, so we can, by the next meeting, we can actually have a discussion about this so we can let them know what we think of her. Any other board member reports?
I did pass these out to everybody. It's what we talked about at the last meeting about the trauma-informed care. And I know that this is sort of based on health care, but it does affect the child that we are dealing with in the school district. And what it does is it goes through all of the different things that could have affected them as they were brought up and how it affects their mental status. So I think in the school district, we are gonna be dealing with their mental status and how they're feeling in the schools. And I wanted you guys to be aware of all of the different things that kind of trigger or make a child's ACE score go up and how it affects them in their lives. And I don't
Thank
think
you.
Kari and Dawn both mentioned it, so I wanted to make sure that you guys understood what they were talking about. So the ACE scores are gonna be showing up more frequently in the hospital setting, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're not gonna start showing up in school districts too. Because it's gonna,
As part of the school safety grant, we have to send 10% of our full-time staff to trauma informed care training, so. And Kari noted that most of our staff, we're already up to 10%.
yeah, so it's coming. I just wanted you guys to be aware of it. It's a nice little handout, so
It's
I
very
thought-
nice.
It's kind of cute.
I'd just like to remind everybody to vote, everybody out in the audience.
Yeah, Muskego.
Yes. Doesn't seem like an important one, but they always, this can be critical for, your opinions, so.
Thank you. We have no committee reports. Moving on to item 8, resolution action items, 8A, 2018, I am the goal.
Motion.
Goals.
Motion to approve I am the goal 2018-19 goals as presented.
So, second.
Discussion?
So the only change to this document is the growth goals, given the change in our universal screener at the middle school and at the high schools. We won't have that SGP. So we just indicated that at a district level, we will be expecting that all schools will meet their growth goal, depending on whatever instrument that they're using. So it'll look different this year. So that's the only change.
Just one, as I read through these, I have to always think back, and when we look at a goal, like student engagement, their surveys will increase from 376 to 386. It's helpful if we have the scale on that.
Oh,
Just
it's
to
always
see-
5. Yep.
Oh, is it always 5?
Yep.
For everyone? Okay. We're kind of not expecting a whole lot from our students compared to the parents.
It's a typical difference, so, and it's primarily at the high school level, so. Elementary kids love their, environment and their teachers and all that.
Well, we should survey that.
Right.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to 8B, policy number 5530.01, random drug testing.
Motion to approve policy number 5530.01, random drug testing as revised.
Someone make that motion? Did I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? This is the policy that was brought forward last meeting.
So we were only able to change the first part, which is the eligibility, like when they become eligible. But as you can read the information from Quarles and Brady, we should not be tested.
So does that mean that the way that it's read, if a kid is in no extracurriculars other than having a parking permit freshman year and doesn't have one beyond, he's still eligible for the 4 years?
What do you mean? They're still eligible for the
For
testing?
the rest of the
Yeah.
time? Okay,
Yeah.
that's how I read it, okay. Even though he's not getting another parking permit the next, once you do it,
Once you do
you're
it,
in.
you're in.
Okay.
You're in the program.
So if I read this right, maybe I didn't, we can, with the students for parking, we can still test for,
All drugs other than
and tobacco, or,
no, because it doesn't create enough, it's not a safety concern for driving, so.
okay. Just, yeah, well, it said nicotine, but about, didn't they say something, maybe I was reading that
They use them.
with the sports, yeah.
So this will come back for consent in August.
We're voting on it now.
Yes, but then also consent comes back.
I'm surprised that it hasn't, but I don't know who lawsuit and stuff, that there hasn't been something in 18 years? Because this is from 2000. Like, no one else has. I don't know who researched, I mean,
This is our district's attorney.
got it.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Moving on to 8C, gifts, grants, and requests.
Motion to accept with thanks the gifts as noted below. Okay, Destination Imagination donations. Leah's Pasta Dinner, profit of $26.54. Texas Roadhouse in New Berlin, gift card, dinner, $445.43. Muskego Women's Club, $100. Muskego Moose Lodge, $200. Suburban Asphalt in Franklin, Wisconsin, $50. Bay Lane PTO, $700. Muskego Elementary PTO, $700. Lake Danoon Middle School PTO, $25. Racine Kringle sale profit, $1,234.10. Quick Trip Gas card profits, $1,490.47. Bay Lane Musical Cookie Sale, $737. And Catherine and Dale Shively, $25 for a total of $8,361. For the Muskego High School, Wisconsin Oven Distributors, Ryan Strand, Mennett HVP 750 Life Climate Chamber, valued $10,000. And C.G. Schmidt, Construction of Scoreboard Foundation, Mounting and Materials, valued at $50,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a comment, I'm guessing on your Quick Trip gas cards, essentially, I'm guessing those are just gas cards that, you know, if you bought gas using this card, the profits from whatever went to, let groups know if they have stuff like that, just at least let them run it by the board. I buy all my gas at Quick Trip almost, except for when I'm over at Costco. I would gladly buy it, you know, that stuff for these groups. It really doesn't change anything, and it's giving them profit, so just a little tip, you know. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to discussion items, any opposition to me moving 9D up first? So Ryan doesn't have to sit in the back of the room in the dark for the rest of the meeting. What? Oh, Chris objects.
No,
I'm sorry. All right, we'll move on with item 9D, BSN/Under Armour and Muskego Norway School District Agreement.
All right, just to summarize for all of us, your efforts since the fall of 2017 in getting this agreement.
Yeah, so we started a process way back last September with our head coaches, specifically at Muskego High School in their coaches corner. Our monthly meetings, we brought up the concept of branding and partnering with a national brand to continue to push the Warriors' influence and brand forward. And long process, but at the end of the day, all of our athletic coaches and administration and who else was involved? There's a lot of people involved. Took a survey, and we worked through the survey of I think we saw 3 big national brands of Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike. Long story short, our folks came out preferring Under Armour, so we started to have those conversations, and then we started to find as we worked through this process, you need to pick a vendor. So as much as I'd like us to be on the same platform as the University of Wisconsin and some of these other ones that work directly with Under Armour, that's just not how the business structure is set up. So we had to find a partner, and we started to look at local companies, but we got 5. And as we went through the process, I started to learn more about where a lot of our current people are already doing their purchasing. And our 2 middle schools do all of their purchasing through BSN. 12 of our 22 high school coaches were working through BSN. We worked with College Town, we worked with Burghardt, we worked with Badger Sporting Goods, East Bay, and through this whole process, soft goods, I've started to learn that soft goods in particular is a pretty competitive and cutthroat business. And it's interesting, to say the least, and getting people to be upfront and honest about their business models that can show you exactly where and the how and being able to line everything out. We were able to get there with BSN, and it took some time, but I believe we covered all the channels, asked all the questions to be able to get everything streamlined, from embellishment cost to shipping cost to you name it, to help save our people who are spending this money anyway. And at the end of the day, that's really what this agreement's about. It's really a purchasing agreement. So we're going to spend this money anyway. It's, can we streamline everyone to work together to drive our purchasing power up, our costs down, and then get rebates at the back end that we can use to better improve our programming. And so at the end of the day, we came to BSN, we partnered with Under Armour and had discussions with them. Some of the cool things about Under Armour that people don't know, they are the smallest of the big three that you saw within your board docs, and they are very much still a grassroots organization. And if you do anything with Kevin Plank, his business model and where it came from and how he did what he did with a whiteboard in his mom's basement is pretty amazing. And so they're still working at the grassroots piece, and the big piece of this for myself, and I know Principal Irvine was lockstep with me as well, is this Women of Will campaign, and empowering the high school female student athlete and finding ways to give them a platform that they might not have now. And it's in its very infant stages, and it's going to continue to grow. And the cool pieces about it is, I think down the road, girls who participate in sport at the high school level will be able to gain credit through some of the accreditation curriculums that they're working with institutions on, which is coming. It's not there yet. Right now it's more of specific uniforms for our female athletes, some branding opportunities with banners and such in the school, and unique backdrops for signing days to, again, empower those young female athletes. And the other piece that I was pushing folks on was the Camo initiative, and trying to get one of these big major brands to partner with us with Camo, because not every kid in our school is into the sports arena, which a lot of these brands are athletic gear, right? But we do have a strong contingency. We had one of our spirit days last year was Camo Day with the homecoming weekend. How do we connect the kids that aren't connected into the sports arena, and how can we bring Camo in? So working with Under Armour, they're willing to, they have a Camo outlet, and they're willing to help us brand some of their Camo things and bring in specific tailored Muskego Camo gear for the students that might be in the shop or outside working and doing certain things that way. But I think if we can get those kids wearing what they're going to wear already, and all of a sudden it has an M with a spear on it, all of a sudden they're affiliated and they're connected to us where they might not necessarily always want to be, if you will. And just another way to reach out and tap. And we say school spirit, okay, everybody can wear the regular Under Armour, they're red, they're black, they're white. And then if you don't want to wear that, you throw on your Camo. It might have a pink M with a spear on it because it's a female ladies cut Camo, and it could be some very cool things there. But it's about connecting people and branding. And then as we work through this even further, we started to take an even bigger approach than just MHS, and that's where I brought it to Kelly and then to Julie to say, can we look at this from a district standpoint, and can we work incentives that our PTOs at our elementary schools, our middle schools are buying athletic gear, and can we find a way to, again, drive up our purchasing power, lower our prices, and get returns in the back end. And part of it for each and every school, whatever they spend, if we can get them on board to spend or purchase through these, they're going to get 5% back cash, and that they can do whatever they want with cash to their school. If we can streamline everybody. And the first step obviously is coming to you tonight to get approval to move forward, and working with Dr. Thompson, roll this out to the leadership team in September is kind of what we talked about, right? And try to get each and every school on board. And by no means are we going to force anybody to have to do this, but we are definitely going to show them the why we chose to do this, and hopefully they'll come on board with us. And everything from custodial shirts to you name it, if we drive it all through one program, we can see some serious returns back to us from not only BSM, but also Under Armour in general. And again, what sets us apart in purchasing power, that's really what this is all about. Because right now when you call to get t-shirts made, you're just like every other person calling, and how do we streamline that to get our service model up. We're gonna have a 5-person team that's in charge of servicing us. We really, a lot of times you only get one. And yeah, is there anything I'm missing?
No, great job.
Sorry.
Nice summary.
So is there any questions or anything specific that you'd like to cover? The other piece that this helps with is a little thing like defining our red. We got a lot of different shades of red around this joint, and working with and working with Under Armour, we've been able to define our not only our red, but also our black and our white, and we start to look at more branding initiatives and signage and everything else that goes with it. But University red with Pantone color, the same as the Badgers, accessible and make it easy. So, yeah.
I have a question. So,
Yes, ma'am.
is just the kickback on Under Armour stuff, or is it other stuff that, just the Under Armour brand that's bought through BSN?
So we have 2 agreements in one. So all of the Under Armour stuff we push through, Under Armour is going to kick back to us. Then all of the hard goods that we might buy for our athletic type gear, but there's business to business partnerships through BSN, and they're a bigger group called Varsity Brands that has to do with yearbook and scholastic academic diplomas, all those type of things, cheerleading, dance, and spirit. They also are just entering a partnership with GoFundMe, where normal GoFundMe takes some of those GoFundMe type avenues that our people are using, are taking 30% of what they raise as their fees. With this BSN partnership, we can partner with GoFundMe, and they're going to take 1%. So really everything that comes in, we're getting. So there's a lot of those other business-to-business partnerships that I think are going to grow this. And that's why as we kept going and I kept asking questions and pushing and wanting to know business models and everything else, that's where it came out of just maybe an athletic department thing to really morphed into a more of an all-district type deal.
So even if what if you were to buy like Holloway through BSN or Nike, or you get anything through them?
Yep. You'd still get a kickback.
Okay.
We would encourage you not to buy Nike, but any of the off brands like Holloway, Allison Athletic, all those types of things where Under Armour might not fit for whatever it is you're looking at. So I'm thinking of the football team had all white t-shirts and red shorts that they wear for practice as their spirit gear. They didn't want to hit the Under Armour price point for that, so they went down to a little bit more of an off brand, and all that stuff can roll in back to the school with some of the rebates and certain things that way. So yeah, it's bigger than just Under Armour, but that's a huge piece of it, because the more we do, the more it's going to help. And setting up partnerships with the other piece with Under Armour that I'm pushing on is getting our BMIT students and the curriculums into UW-Madison's sports marketing department and business side of things. Northwestern, I've been told South Dakota State has a great community partnership with Under Armour, and I plan on hopefully going out there at the end of November to see a little bit more of what that's about. But growing those academic connections to our classroom and the bigger picture, a lot like we were trying to do with our scoreboard, is part of this as well, and working those connections to push those opportunities through. Which I like the Under Armour, by the way.
I picked it for tonight. I have many of these, but I picked my Under Armour one.
There you go.
I just want to put it out there that I appreciate all the work that you put into this and getting that accomplished. But there are still at least 10 families that I know with the school district that have their own, printing shop and local places and stuff. And I still want to be able to say that it's still okay for those people to go out there and use the local brands and the local families and the local print shops that they do have. Because, I mean, this can take away their business and their livelihood and stuff. So, because I mean, everyone that you have listed here, I don't see the names of those local families that own print shops that are here. So.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And like I said, I'm not forcing anyone. It's just a choice to get, again, rebates and I have a great appreciation for the local shops. The hard part is when you start to package all this together, there's only so much of Badger Sporting Goods, Burkhardt Sporting Goods, some of the other local shops. That, I'm missing the one that printed the baseball shirts and short shorts at their sectionals. They don't have the business models to be able to accomplish everything at the largest level to get the returns, but absolutely, there's going to be a time and a place where we'll need them, and Yeah, we'll work to increase buy-in and not force anybody's hand.
Right, I'm like thinking dodgeball tournaments and
Mhm.
stuff where they can
Mhm.
hit the turnaround a lot faster than a bigger brand. But I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
So essentially you're not forcing, but you want all the booster clubs and everything to like tie into this.
Yeah.
Okay. And piggybacking on what Tracy said, while we will be gaining, percentage back and a rebate back, you're going to lose. There's a number of businesses out there that are doing a substantial amount right now that contribute to, fundraising and advertising, and these booster clubs may go to them for their T-shirts, and then later on they may go to them for advertising because they bought from them, and you're going to lose all that then too. So we are somewhat going to be eating our young on this. And just hope that the payback over time is worth it. I generally like the idea of going this, but I mean there is definitely a downside on this. One part in the contract, and I'll probably be touching base with you more on individual things on here, but like the BSN annual rebate amount, 10% of the annual spend in retail product or 5% cash to the school. One of the things I guess I really want to push on this is that we're doing this to be getting cash back and funding other programs and funding our internal programs in this. I don't want at the end of the year that, oh, we got 10% buy, let's go buy extra stuff because we get 10% off on this. So I'd almost want the contract to eliminate that unless you can adjust it or come back and guarantee that the buy will be for like next year's uniforms or something like that. I just don't want that extra temptation. I know what they're doing. They want you to, instead of giving us writing a check off, I'd rather just have you buy more and give you a discount. That really defeats the purpose of what we're doing here.
Yep. And we're going to take the cash option. I think Kelly said the exact same thing you just said, is we'd rather have the cash back, not the retail, so. Yep.
So if we're going to do that, that's your direction, get it out of the contract.
Okay.
You may, well, I hope you're here for a long time, you may not be.
Yep.
I mean, just on your own choice, but you know what I mean.
And that's why we're bringing it forward too, because it's bigger than me.
Right.
It's the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I always appreciate your outside the box thinking and just honestly having us think about things that we haven't thought about, so.
No problem.
Have you, one last question on this, have you compared this contract to what other districts or schools have that have tied in with Under Armour, and how it compares to what they're getting, just to make sure that, are we getting the best we can get with this?
We are getting a very good deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a yes?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Some of the things specifically that we partnerships with like our school store and things as well, other schools are not getting that. I'm not going to go and share that a whole lot because I'd like to keep our purchasing power and things where it is, but we definitely have pushed them to a point where I think it could be very healthy for us, and I feel really good about it, and that's why I felt good about bringing it to Kelly and then to the board tonight, because we're getting a really good deal to help empower our kids and our community. So yes. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going home.
So will this be on for action? Then?
Yep.
Moving on to other discussion items, 9A, 2018-19 preliminary budget. Anything new on this or placeholder?
No, I had information for you.
All right.
Lots.
It looks like lots of
Yeah.
information here.
So this will be kind of a three-part process. So tonight we'll just introduce the budget in a very 30,000-foot view, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. The next meeting, we'll go into detail with a lot more detail. And then you would actually take action in September, at the first meeting in September. So we have time to process through budget. We don't want to rush it. But I just want to give you an idea where we're at. One of the most important things about where our tax levy is going to be is to find out where we ended up in the previous year. And so we just had our audit last week, so these numbers are very preliminary. Things could adjust slightly. But if you would like to open the document that is called 2018-19 Preliminary Budget and Fund Balance, no FTE change. So this is the budget document that just goes through some of the assumptions that we used. This shows you a 3-year kind of budget and fund balance report. So the 2017 column is actually the 16-17 school year. The column highlighted in blue is our current year, and in the 2018-19 year will be the column to the right. So what you'll see over that 3-year period is our September membership. So that's our student count. Again, our student count is not one FTE for one student because I went with 4-year-old kindergarten because they don't go full-time. It's actually reduced to like a 60% student. So our membership, whenever you see FTE, it is taking all of the enrollment and making sure that we're accounting for it as an FTE and not just a head count. So you'll see that in this assumption, we are assuming that in our September FTE will remain the same in 18-19 as it was in 17-18. The per pupil increase is something that we used to receive in the past to help grow the amount of money we would get from the revenue limit formula. That no longer exists. We get that money from the state in different ways now. Our equalized valuation growth, so this is the growth that the state looks at to determine how much money we as a school district should get in comparison to everybody else. And so we, this past year, had a 6.8% equalized value growth, which was, it was huge. We are estimating about a 3% this year. That could adjust. We get that final valuation in October. From a fund, our general fund perspective, our Fund 10 revenues and expenditures. So you'll see in 2016-17, where it says surplus deficit, we rolled about $1.2 million into fund balance. In 2017-18, right now we have like an estimate that about $2.3 million is being taken out of fund balance. And so in board docs, I kind of put like a breakdown of where that 2.3, like what that's made up of. So 1.2 million from the pool project, 120,000 went toward the concession bathroom project. The bleacher project, when turf was approved, we decided to move forward with bleachers. We anticipated using 18-19 monies for that, but we didn't. We finished the project before, so we had to use fund balance to support that total cost. $100,000 is for the scoreboard project. Again, that will be reimbursed to us through all of the donations. It's just we had to front through fund balance to support the scoreboard going in. And then also $257,000 for the purchase of our house. So that makes up about $2.4 million. However, our budget was under at the end of the year, so the difference between those two, we're actually using about $2.3 million of fund balance. So I have never brought forward the use of fund balance to the board before, so it's really nerve-wracking to bring forward a red number to you. But that was expected and approved. And then continuing on into 18-19, we are showing that number that's in red. We are showing a purposeful use of fund balance to finish the pool project. So that number could adjust based on where we end up. But again, that was board approved as well. So we are showing an unbalanced budget for 18-19. The fund balance number that you see below, that is how much money we have to support our cash flow. Again, it's a point in time number. It's not sitting in the bank at $20 million. We use that to support payroll and operations throughout the year while we don't have money coming in. It allows us to not have a short-term cash flow borrow either. So you'll see with the use of money this year, we dropped from 39% fund balance down to 32%. And then we'll be slightly under that 32% going into next year as well. And then
what do we need?
I'm sorry.
What do we need for fund balance? Are we right around there, or are we still a little more?
No, we have about $3 million more that we can continue using. Yeah. I'm going to run a new cash flow scenario for the board for next time, so you can see where that break-even point is, just so that we know moving into the future. But that's about, we looked at about $5 million in the past. Total. And then as far as our tax levy goes, I have the tax levies listed. So assuming flat enrollment and assuming the assumptions that are in the budget right now, our tax levy is anticipated to go down 0.11%. There are some adjustments that do get made when enrollment changes, so we'll look at those other scenarios, but just to give you an idea, if everything remains as is, as we anticipate, we'll see a reduction in the tax levy. And then the next number just shows the tax rate per thousand. Again, that number is not as important because when municipalities roll out the tax bill, it's based on assessed values, so those numbers aren't always equal. So then the next document, if you want to open, we will continue with the flat enrollment, is the 2018-19 prelim levy no FTE change. So again, kind of the same concept, we're looking at the 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19 years. This just shows a breakdown of what that 0.11% decrease in the levy will be in 2018, 19. Again, we have 4 different levies. We have our general fund. We also have our non-referendum debt. We have our capital expansion. One thing that's important to note, the capital expansion is money that we set aside for capital projects, but it's technically part of our general fund, so if we don't use that in fund, if we don't allocate that levy, it rolls up into Fund 10. It's not like if we reduce that, that drops the levy. It just rolls up into Fund 10 and we have more to expend there. And then referendum approved debt service. So that's our total debt payment that we make for all of our outstanding debt. And then it shows you, again, the equalized valuation and mill rate. So any questions on that? So the other documents that are in, I'll go through really quickly because we kind of went through those in detail. If you look at the preliminary budget 50 FTE increase, so you'll notice a couple changes here. In 2018-19, if we have an increase in FTEs, we get more money, but we don't necessarily get more state aid to approve it because aid is a year lagging. I mean, it comes a year after. So, so the state aid isn't there, so if we get more students, great, but our tax levy also will increase as a result. And so, if you go to, and just skip this page, if we go to the preliminary tax levy document with the 50 FTE increase, if we were to do nothing, our tax levy would actually go up by 0.42% if we start to see an increase in students, because we need more tax money to support the extra money that we'd be getting for those students. However, we've talked about in the past that in our Fund 39, which is our referendum fund balance, we have over $1 million sitting in there that we can use to support paying off debt. We can't use it for anything else. So if we see an increase in our levy, we can pull money from Fund 39, which can only be used to pay down debt, and we can make some of our principal payments with that money. And at the bottom of this document, if you look, $150,000 of that fund balance would be needed to bring our tax levy down to a 0.04% decrease. So again, we can still have our tax levy decreasing as we move forward in the different scenarios, but we will have to use Fund 39 fund balance to support our payment to help offset that increase.
Is there any kind of fee or anything like that when you use?
No.
No.
Is there a reason why you're using 50 FTE increase to expect that?
Those are kind of our general, like, we would usually never see more than 50 increase or decrease, and so somewhere in the middle, we know we're comfortable if the board sees all ends of it.
So it's not something we're seeing, it's just
We saw it 2 years ago, we saw an increase of 50 students, and then we also saw the decrease the next year, so that's kind of been our range. So this is kind of like, I don't want to say worst case scenario because we'd love to have 50 more students, but it's worst case taxes scenario. If we look at the next document, and we can just go, if you want, right to the tax levy decrease 50 FTE. You'll see that if we did nothing, our tax levy would go up 0.21%. But if we were to use $75,000 of fund balance, we would see a decrease in the tax levy of 0.03%. So again, managing the levy down by using fund balance, but we don't have to use as much. And the reason that is because when you lose students in our equalization formula, you lose them gradually, so it's like a 3-year rolling average of students, so you don't see that 50 immediately like you do with the increase, and so you feel the impact a little less harshly. So that's why it's Any questions?
So in all 3 scenarios, whether we stay consistent with FTE or increase or decrease, there's an opportunity for the board to consider, in two scenarios, the Fund 39 to allow there to be a decrease in the levy, which would then be 2 years in a row?
18.
So I guess I'm just,
Sure,
what is
yeah.
the downfall of using Fund 39? I don't understand why you wouldn't use it.
So there really isn't one, and technically, it is a tool, right? And
Okay.
in the past, through refinancing of debt, you can build up fund balance as long as your intent is to use it to pay down debt. And so it's been built up through refinancing, some really good decisions by the board for years, and so we have some flexibility. It's good to have some in there, so when we're in situations like this and we want the taxes to go down, we have that tool.
Yeah, I would think that there's a cutoff of what you would want to use,
Right, yeah.
so that you still have a balance.
So Julie, just to clarify, you said if we have if we decrease students, 3-year rolling average kicks in, but if we have an increase, it doesn't affect the 3-year?
It doesn't because it's a direct impact on the revenue limit.
Okay.
I'm sorry, a direct impact on, yes, we feel the revenue limit impact of all 50 students right away.
So they don't use the rolling average for that?
No, you do.
Okay.
But there's offset.
I'm sorry, declining enrollment exemption kicks in. Sorry, there's a piece. When you are declining, the declining enrollment exemption kicks in, and it's a tool that's in the formula that helps you to gradually feel that decrease. So yes, I'm sorry, 3-year rolling average for both increase and decrease, but that declining enrollment exemption allows for you to not feel the impact as harshly on the revenue limit side.
Good.
Thank you, that was a great follow-up.
I was always under the impression it was always.
Yeah, it is, it is.
Is there really that much of a fluctuation when you have 50 and then 0?
It can be.
Really?
Well, it's 1% roughly. Use 1% of our students.
We get about $10,000 per student, so.
That seems
You know, if you have enough
like a
of them.
lot of students leaving the district.
It's bubbles in classes usually, is where you'll see it. So if you look at the enrollment numbers of each class, you know, it happens for the high school where I think this year's class was much above the middle, wasn't it? But the year before, we had a big class.
We had a really
This
big
is more of a graduation class than.
Then who's coming in.
Got it.
Yeah, it's not actually.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, that's what I mean by those bubbles going through.
Right.
We have a really small statutory class that's gonna make its way through, so.
That makes more
Yeah.
sense. The baby boom and then the
Yeah.
baby. The really bad winters in Wisconsin.
I have a question going back to some of the fund balance use this year.
Yes.
So the house, why wasn't that used out of the construction, the referendum funds?
I guess we didn't.
And we have the money in there.
We could.
I mean, shouldn't we?
I think the way we viewed it though was when we were looking at the overall cost of the referendum project, over $2 million was gonna come out of fund balance, so that's technically a portion of the fund balance
Okay.
that we would be using to support.
So either way, we're gonna be using it out of fund balance, so it doesn't go there.
I mean, we could, if, with contingency remaining,
Because the
think about
contingency,
this.
what, we have
With
about
contingent-
600?
We have about 600, so we have 400 construction, we're 250, I think, yet with owners. So getting to the end of the project now, I think at the time, we weren't as comfortable not knowing what contingency would hold, but we could definitely look at making an adjustment.
And then if we did do it out of that, is there any strings tied on when we sell the house? Or is that a reason why we did it?
No, I don't believe that's the case,
Okay.
but I will double check.
I thought the house had to be unlimited.
The what?
The house.
It's gonna what? I'm sorry.
I thought the house had to be eliminated to make the emergency room.
No,
Or did it?
no, we just have to parcel off that part of the land and we can repackage it and sell it.
Oh, okay.
I'll look into it, and then we'll look at which makes more sense from a tax perspective, because I think obviously the less fund balance we use, the less we have to use out of Fund 39 for any sort of assistance in lowering the levy. So, yeah, let me double check. I mean, if we're comfortable, and I can bring that back, we can look at scenarios at the next board meeting. But I can bring back,
I know
here's
we
where we're
looked
at
at a
with
bunch of different things at the
contingency and-
time, and I thought we ended up using it out of that.
Yeah, we
but-
didn't, but it really is a journal entry, from an audit perspective, so.
Okay.
If we're comfortable, we can bring that back as an option and
Yeah,
decide if we
I
want to
just
use
want
our
to make sure that we're not
contingency
tying
or-
ourselves that.
Yeah, I'll double check with legal, but I don't
Selling
think
it.
we are.
Anything else in this?
That's all I had.
It makes so much more sense now.
That's
So I was reading
that's
through
why
it, I
I
was
don't
like-
like putting it in advance, like with the initial part of it, because it's like, it doesn't make any sense anyway, so. Let's walk through it and
Yeah.
as long as you have a couple
Use the color
meetings to
blue
make
instead of red, I mean. Green.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, moving on to 2018-19 board goals.
All right, these are just proposed and certainly open to how the board sees, their work over the next year. The first is related to responsible resource stewardship to assist and promote the development of strategic community partnerships that support alternative revenue avenues and student experience opportunities. Related to board development, participate in the process of researching and considering a Muskego Norway Education Foundation. And around board governance, contribute to the phase 2 master planning process, prioritizing next steps to enhance facilities and student activity options as identified and supported by stakeholders. Certainly open to your thoughts. This will come back for action in 2 weeks, so digest it more.
Do you want to maybe break some of those down and maybe, like say, let's just talk about the Education Foundation, for example. How would that look? What are you envisioning for that?
Sure. Do you want me just
I was
to
going
share?
to ask, do you have any thoughts at this point?
Well, it would be more about like some of those work sessions that we would have, or in a cow, that we would be bringing that back to have, gain additional input and kind of direction. So as we begin to research and consider Educational Foundation, we would have a committee of the whole to talk about, these are the benefits, this is what it's structured, this is what it's all about, these are the liabilities, all of that kind of stuff, so that the board weighs in a little more dialogue around that component, because it's brand new, it's something we haven't really, even really taken any time to investigate. So it'd be right on the, ground floor, would help us determine whether or not it's beneficial for us.
Did that come from someplace else? Did you see it somewhere else? Or?
Actually, Julie had indicated that we are the only school district in Muskego County that doesn't have an education foundation. So
We're the
let's
only
get
one?
one.
That does surprise me, actually. I knew the other ones had them, I just didn't realize.
And a
we
lot
were-
of them have them, and again, the foundations themselves are not board run or district run, they're run by an outside
Right, it can't be.
501c3, right? With representation, but the foundation can be different depending on what goals are set. So you can have some, like, let's say there is a school district that has one, but all they do is a very small fundraiser and they give out $2,000 in scholarships. That's their foundation. Then you have like monster ones like Elmbrook, where they're raising tons of money for various different things. So it just depends on the level of involvement, the people that you have, how much they're willing to put in.
So I sat on the Franklin Educational Foundation many years ago, and they had a relatively good one back then where they raised, there were a lot of people in the community, and even those who worked in the community, but didn't live in the community, sat on the board and raised a significant amount of money, and they did things like, the golf fund was huge. Yeah, and they'd have teachers come in and present projects that they wanted to do. That might have been science projects or something, but they needed funds that weren't going to be supplied by the district, and they would apply for grants from the foundation, and then they would have their own separate committee that would, it actually worked really well.
I think of it as a district level PTO almost, where they fundraise and they, do things to support the education, but they are not affiliated.
Do you have any idea of what these other ones that exist, what their budgets are? Like, what are they holding in those?
One of our first steps is to sit down with some of them.
So I guess,
yes.
before we get ahead of
What
ourselves,
level are we talking?
so what we're really talking about for like number 2 is just really to
get more in depth into what we're just talking about here.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
You know, it's not, we're not saying our goal is to set one up, our goal is to actually talk about it.
Right. Researching and considering.
So, but I guess, you know, like talking about the first one, responsible research, I mean, and I pulled that out as the Education Foundation's example and a bad one, because the whole goal was just to talk about it. So, like the top one is alternative revenue sources, and, you know, you're talking about to assist and promote. So there where one of our goals, you're talking about actually doing something. Talk about more about that one, what different things would you want to see actually doing?
Yeah. And part of that is really the awareness, the in-depth awareness of, you know, those 6 levels of experience and being able to talk, because you all have your own tentacles out there in the community, and being so aware and understanding, you are able to promote, you know, like, oh, this is a great program for students, this is how it works, and so your depth of knowledge of those experiences and how businesses actually can contribute and have that reciprocal kind of relationship with the district would be known to a level that you could actually have a conversation with people about what that looks like, and you know, help us kind of promote that out there, because you guys all, like I said, you know, you have your own connections out there. So that's what that would look like. And so that would also be either as we develop, and we would sit with the board in a COW, in the committee of the whole, or in a work session if we find that it's difficult to meet before board meetings, and have a discussion about what those look like. And then you can bring questions and maybe even help us kind of connect with Children's Hospital or whoever else that might help us, you know, kind of bridge some of those gaps for us. That's what that means.
Any questions about that?
Well, when I was reading it, I was kind of thinking, there's so many people in this community that give towards the school district that aren't part of the school. There's a lot of elderly people out there in this world, in our community, that I know that they would love to have the opportunity to walk on the track in the, you know, like, I would love to see that sort of connection where we could tie in and then give a little bit back to those people that have given us so much to our, you know, mission. That I think it would be kind of nice to see with the board, if we could try to promote that a little bit, or some sort of connection to those people too. Because they're still giving taxes, and they're still paying for school, and they don't have kids in the district, and, you know, that kind of thing.
So, I mean, are you talking about adding an additional goal
No,
here, or
it's
putting it under
the
one?
strategic community partnership.
Okay.
I think that kind of, I thought it kind of rolled it. When I read it, that's what I was envisioning, was that we could make those connections with those individuals and kind of make it feel like they're part of our
How could they
community
fit
too.
into those 6 levels, or how can they fit into our system in,
Right.
you know, maybe in a broader sense that we're not even considering at this point.
Right, right. I mean, I used to love like Veterans Day when they would come and
Sure.
just talk about all the stuff that they experienced in life and stuff. I just feel like they have so much to offer to us.
Mhm.
That'd be kind of nice if we could somehow connect with them and make that an opportunity.
You can also look at that through the volunteer program as well.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, I know, like, and when you were mentioning that before too, and your kids went to St. Leonard's, and it's a requirement, right, for them. They have to have so many, 20-some hours before they can get confirmed and such. And I know that they have those things already in place, that I would try to see if you could maybe even tap into them already. Like, why recreate the wheel when I know Beth Ann already has like a rake and, I don't know what it's called, but you go and you rake leaves and go to people's homes and take care of their yards for them because they can't do it at their age and stuff.
And
So-
actually, what Julie's talking about is the reverse, is actually having, like when we went to Tudor Oaks, they were clamoring, like, we want to come into the schools, and we want to volunteer. We
Oh, there
want
you
to,
go.
so in a way to see them as an opportunity for them to come in and serve students and, you know, build some relationships that way too.
Yeah, at the college, they asked the alumni to say, how would you like to connect with the young students and stuff? And overwhelmingly, they all wanted to chaperone, like, trips and stuff. Like, and they would pay their way, you wouldn't have to pay for them to go, and they would be there to just kind of mentor the students along around their trips and stuff. So, I mean, that, and with you having the webpage for the alumni and stuff, I'm sure there's some sort of connection to that can go there too. Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff.
We are talking about your website.
Warrior Nation. Just got a teacher orientation tomorrow.
We lost our folder for tomorrow morning, so I was just trying to get back.
Oh, really?
That's it, yeah. No big deal.
Maybe a few hours yet.
It's all good.
You have that backed up on the jump drive, right?
Manually.
Rely
So-
on Google.
So under the board governance, with
Yes.
the phase 2 master plan,
Yeah.
as we navigate through that, we keep calling it phase 1, phase 2. Are we actually anticipating an end to our master planning at some point? I picture that as an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
So maybe as we go through the phase 2, which I know we're hitting the major stuff, but we could start planning a little better for long range stuff. I know there's people want a field house,
Right.
which
Right.
is a ways off, but laying the foundation and the thought and what we want to do down the road is not a bad idea. At least that's one way of getting community feedbacks. You know, people will talk about it and they'll love it, they'll hate it. We'll kind of get a better feel for it. So, you know, as we go through the phase 2, we might want to come up with something more permanent.
Well, and
Maybe by the
Jeremiah
year.
and Brian have these long-term plans, but they don't, when you have a budget of X, Y, Z,
Right.
it's not a $17 million field house. You know what I mean? Like, those are projects that you really have to think outside of your typical budget and say, how, is this a priority? Does the community want this? And how are we gonna get that?
And that's why a long range
So-
plan is good to lay down that
Yeah,
foundation.
right.
So just to talk, rather
Yeah.
than just starting to call it phase 3, phase 4, maybe start calling it 2020 master plan, or whatever. It kind of sounds like the city, but
2090. Yeah, perfect, okay, thank you.
So what do you want? Do you want to bring this back again?
We'll bring it back, and if, I'm hearing that, you know, if you have further questions or in depth, you know, I think we'll, you know, kind of work together through these 3 goals. But if you want some wordsmithing or any changes to it, let me know, and I can certainly make those changes by the next time we see it in action on August 20, whatever. Okay,
Sounds good.
thank you.
Moving on to item 9C, amendment to agreement with Todd.
So our Tahoe contract is a 5-year contract. That's a federally regulated USDA standard guideline. And so we are going into year 5 of the contract. And so this is the amendment that we sign. All the contract language remains the same, except there's a change to the fee. That allows for Tahoe the opportunity to take on increases with their payroll benefits, et cetera. It is capped by the federal government, so it cannot be any more than 2.5% for this year. So we are looking at a fee increase. We are looking at a profit again in the food service program, and so we did see, and they will be coming forward to you, but with the start of the year with all the new kitchens, they wanted to bring forward a lot of different things. So they'll be coming to you probably in September to talk a little bit more about that. But they work really, really well with us, and then, like I said, this year we'll have to go out to bid, so it'll be a formal RFP process for anybody who wants to participate.
I'm sorry, next year we'll be doing?
This current year, for the so we'll go through the process this year, 1920 will be the start of the new 5-year.
So, and this is their proposal? Tahoe?
This is a standard federal form, but the proposal is the 2.5%, yes.
It is.
Yes.
What was the last increase?
Yes, and
It just feels like they just put out the max just because they can put the max out. I feel like there's no like leeway. Because, I mean, why not ask for the max?
well, we budget about 2 to 2.5% for our salary increases, so just to support their payroll alone.
Well, I
It is a
get that, I mean, that's
reasonable.
what we have at the hospital too, I mean, I'm just,
Well, and it's a long-term relationship, so they also don't want to ask what's unreasonable because they're going to be up for bid this next year
Right.
also, so.
I had to figure it out because they gave me a per meal last year, so I had to figure out.
Quick, do math.
Quick math. gonna have to bring that back.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll bring it back.
So if you are doing research on just give me the last two increases. what they
Yep.
were at.
Well, in the contract, it goes from 49 to 50. So, because it says current school year rate.
No, I was wondering what the last time we did an increase, what it was.
Oh, back.
Like 16,
The
17,
last two
17,
increases,
18.
I guess what I'm getting at is it 2.5 every time?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
I
fine.
bet it is. Because why wouldn't you have the math?
And there's reasons why you would, I mean, especially, during some of the years where we weren't increasing anything, so I could see where it wasn't necessarily.
Okay, I'll bring that back next.
Any other questions on this or any other information you want? Moving on to information follow-up. Anything requested specifically? And then there's two items on there for your own enjoyment. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:49. Thank you.